Welcome to another episode of CBAN's Member Spotlight. I'm Curtis Dean, and today we're going to be shining the spotlight on one of CBAN's amazing associate members. I'd like to welcome to the platform here with us today, Todd Gatzke and Niles with Open Country. Open Country is one of our associate members. And gentlemen, thanks for coming on. That's Todd to the left and Brett to the right, in case you were wondering at home. Thanks for coming on, guys.
Thank you for the invite, Curtis.
You bet. And you guys are coming into us from really from the job site in a way. You are working on a project in Washington State, right?
Yeah, this is a fiber to the home rollout. It's a 3-year project we have going on. So we're working out of our kind of our project office here in Puyallup, Washington, which is near Tacoma.
Super. Well, we're excited. You can take a few minutes out of your day to talk to us about what you do at Open Country and share some information about us. Well, let's just kind of start right there. What does Open Country do? What are you guys all about?
Well, we're one of the true turnkey vendors that provide services to the MSOs, municipalities, and we everywhere from engineering to the customer set-top box. A unique service that we deliver. Our clients have the same truck from day one to the time that the customer gets installed, really eliminating the confusion with that customer, wondering why there's so many different companies working in their front yard, their backyard. We're able to deliver a consistent logo to our clients and to their customers, helping them deploy fiber to the home, expanding across the U.S. and rural America, where others have not chosen to go. We go and we install the fiber for them.
How long have you been in doing this, gentlemen?
The industry itself, I started in 19. Okay.
Yeah, well, let's talk a little bit about your history too,
sure.
Todd.
Yeah.
Each of you give us your background, your individual background, and let's talk about Open Country as an entity. How long have you been doing this?
Sure. I started in 1995 with Comcast. Started as an installer. Was an installer for almost 15 years, and then went into the leadership roles at Comcast. And so I've been in it for quite a while. Brett, almost as long as I have. And the last 6 years, we started Open Country in late 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And almost the same mission as CBAN. We focus on the smaller MSOs in the rural America that are underserved. We help those companies strategically deploy their fiber networks through consulting, through best practices, and just real good collaboration with our clients to help them get their network up to speed and get their network installed.
So you guys have construction crews. You're actually out digging holes and putting stuff in the ground. I assume on poles too, as needed, both aerial and underground. What does the whole customer journey look like for you? Are you working on the design end too at the front with that customer all the way through installation and then operational? What does that look like?
And so it varies. We do our own design and engineering. For the most part, fiber to the home, existing customers, they kind of do their own design. I've got a couple of them adapt a new program called IQGEO that they're using for their design, and then we work off of that. So there's growing pains associated with that. Well, the design and engineering we do is typically on the maintenance, MDU, commercial side. So when they have those particular projects come up, we'll design and engineer it and then build it, construct it, install it, and turn it over on that side. As far as fiber to the home, yeah, we've got a lot of crews in the field in a couple different areas. There's pretty sizable projects that we're trying to take care of this year, roughly 30,000 passings.
Wow.
Give or take, depending on permitting, locates, the other variables that always come into play with fiber to the home. But we're trying to, as a company, try to build close to 10 miles, maybe 12 miles of plant each week. And that's the busy part.
You guys are in that end of the industry where there really are significant differences in the conditions of the work you do, depending on where you are geographically. We mentioned you're in Washington State right now and working on a project. I would imagine it's a little different working there than it, say, would be in Kansas or Illinois or Iowa or any other place like that. So talk a little bit about what you have to do as a company to adjust your work process to, the geology and the topography of the areas you're doing that work.
Yeah, so you're right. In the Midwest, we deal with a lot of potato dirt, and more times than not, the boring is fairly straightforward. In the West, in Idaho, Washington, we run into more rock. Of course, the majority of what we do is, residential and commercial fiber in homes. So we're running in city, county right of ways, at 2 and 3 feet deep. So we never really hit hard rock, but we'll hit cobble here and there, and those instances that we deal with. The differences between the Midwest and the West, really seems like for every 100 miles you go west, the price goes up about $2 a foot. The cost of labor, the cost of passing everything out here is exponentially higher than what we've built for in the Midwest and even further in the East and the Southeast. There's also, political ramifications that we deal with when it comes to permitting with cities and building relationships with cities and counties, because of a lot of the places we build, Federal Way, Washington, for instance, a great city that has not yet been snake bit by fiber to the home, which is both good and bad. The good part is they're pretty open to, taking the handcuffs off and letting us do, 30, 40,000 feet a week, in their city. The downside of it is that they're not aware of the amount of labor and crews that we'll have working every day. 300-400 people in the field spread throughout their town each day, putting holes in their sidewalks, putting holes in the street, up and running inside a resident's home and the restoration that's associated with it, and dealing with the call demand from people wondering why somebody's working on their, in their front yard. People inherently think that they own from their porch to the middle of the road,
right,
aren't aware right away. So a lot of those calls come right to the city. And of course, it's usually just a couple of people that field those calls, and they go from a couple a week to 30 a day. And so I call it herding cats. We have to get everybody in order, from our crews and our field staff, and the way we manage projects internally and externally, both from safety, production, quality, and then with the locating groups and getting them up to speed, so they're swimming or rowing in the same direction and can keep up with us. And then of course the city, whoever the permitting authority is, building trust with them. Sure. And meeting their expectations week over week, dealing with issues that come up, making sure we're leaving their streets, their sidewalks, their residence yard, good or better than we found them. And it takes a while. It takes a while to get all of them, up to speed. But once you do, the builds go pretty quick.
You mentioned earlier that you guys do, quite a bit of work with MDUs. That seems like one of the more unique challenges in this industry, because sometimes those buildings were wired in an area, and they were a lot of times wired in an era when everything was delivered by a copper. And now we're reached an era where copper may or may not have the capabilities, depending on what type it is, to deliver those kinds of gigabit experiences that customers are wanting. Talk a little bit about how you approach that when you're working with a client and looking at MDUs as a installation or a deployment.
Yeah, very good topic to discuss. We just had a good conversation this morning about that with our client down here or over here. But currently working in Iowa with our client there, a lot of MDUs go unnoticed. They're ignored. Everyone's looking for those passings. Everyone wants those passings, but they'll build to 10 residential homes and pass up 2 MDUs that may have 200 units in them. Because of what you said, it appears difficult to rewire those. The fortunate thing that we have is we have teams of MDU technicians that do enterprise work for commercial buildings, small business buildings. We do a lot of pre-wiring and post-wiring, so our crews understand the structures of these buildings. Brett was just walking me through a project. I believe it was 1800s the building was built in. 7 stories. So we bring that unique perspective that working across the country, we've seen so many different buildings. We've wired prisons, we've wired hospitals. So it seems overwhelming to the client. But once we can put boots on the ground and have the client go out with us and show them the simplicities that it can be, it really takes that one passing that they ignored into a possible 50 to 60 customers overnight, with the project done right. And there again, if we're wiring it, and say it's an assisted living building and it's a quote unquote bulk project, not only can we wire it, we can also do that install that same day. So the impact to that customer is so minimal. And we leave that property with customers surfing 1 gig, 10 gig service by the time we're done.
That takes a lot of creative problem solving, doesn't it, by both your design team and your installers, the people that are actually, fishing cables through walls and doing those things.
Yes, it gets hot in the attics.
Yes,
there's a lot of belly crawls through insulation, but it's at the end of the day, it's well worth it. And there's so much value in the MDU product that most ignore. The larger MSOs understand it. Some of the smaller ones just don't quite grasp the importance of how easy it is to obtain customers through these MDUs.
Yeah, and I suppose that's one of your jobs, right? As somebody who's an industry expert in certain areas, is to make sure your clients understand the value of reaching those folks, which may be a little less convenient to serve, but are just as important. For those, access is just as important for those folks as anyone else.
A lot of our customers, I mean, the cost per passing, right, is typically highly reduced serving an MDU, and more times than not, when they are building, overlaying the fiber to the home network, we have available distribution or feeder fiber that's running in front of the property. So all it really is designing from where our existing feed is, to feed each building, and then getting up into each building, and then putting a jack in each unit. So it's a process, but the cost per passing is highly reduced. And we see a lot of our customers now, selling bulk accounts to, complexes, the individual owners or companies that own multiple complexes in different parts of the state. They'll sell a bulk account, so we'll literally put a router in every single unit, and it's a 5-year, 10-year profit center for our customers. And then of course, the property owners, everybody wants to move to where there's fiber. You just need fiber. And what we do these days between video calls and networking and the amount of data we send, and of course, watching TV, it's all fiber driven. So people will literally move to a complex, choose one versus over the other. It's got fiber.
And that's a landowner education process too, right? They need to understand that, it is, maybe it's a little disruptive of you're messing around with my building, but you're making your building and the properties, the living facilities in that property more valuable to the renters out there. Let's move on a little bit. I just want to give you guys a chance to brag just a little bit, because you have stuff to brag about. What are some of the things that set Open Country apart from some of the other firms out there that do some of what you do?
Go ahead, Brett.
I focus mainly on the construction, the fiber to the home, or building dark fiber networks for school districts or different private companies. Where I think our value is we're truly turnkey in that. The way I work with my customers is managing really the relationship both with the city, with the county, with all the locators, even with some of their procurement folks. It's really a hands-off type relationship, meaning I'll go and work with the city and get the areas permitted that I need to get permitted, and keep the city happy, and continuing to issue us permits over permits so we can build, fast and to scale. And then of course we provide all the resources. We give them daily and weekly updates on their passings, when things are active, where they are, whole 9 yards. And then on the back end, the closeout. We see a lot of customers now where years ago it was always a cost per foot, a la carte based, this, that, how we get paid. Now, most of my customers now really look at their cost per passing, and they'll give me a cost per passing in a certain, part of the country. And then I work on my side to figure out how I can design it, engineer it, and build it, at their cost per passing or less. And so managing that part is important, but really it's giving them a build schedule, and keeping everyone happy on the side, and meeting their expectations and deadlines for turnovers. So, their marketing folks, their R&R folks, all that stuff. So they're getting activations, on schedule with their board. That's our value. I mean, we're we're the true general contractor, in that we really won't take a project on unless we can manage that whole relationship, because it dictates our success at the end of the day. That's one thing sets us apart.
Yeah. And then when you face the customer, once Brett and his team, they cover everything that gets rained on. The other side of the business is everything that's inside that resident's home. And being part of an in-house team like a Comcast, a corporate a company for so long, I was able to see what a quote unquote contractor looked like from the inside out. So we're reverse engineering that, and we spend time with our clients prior to even starting any projects, and not only to learn who they are, learn who their customers are, learn who their neighbors are. We take notes on their uniforms, we take notes on their vehicles, we take notes on their logos, we take notes on how they represent their offices and our vision. And one of the things we did when we started Open Country was, you won't know if we're a subcontractor or we work directly with our client as an in-house employee. Meaning we're going to be as professional as we can. We do constant trainings. Part of the reason why CBAN and SCT is so important to us is the training that they provide and the education that we can provide to our teams through networking and through all these different educations that some may even overlook. We're trying to stay 2 steps ahead of our clients, not to say, hey, look what we can do. But we're going to provide them something that they didn't realize they need. And we don't always outpace our clients in-house teams, but we do our best to outperform and outshine. And so they have a reason to come say, hey, can we get some more of that? And how can we teach that to our in-house teams?
Well, I can't let us get by without talking a little bit about the 4-letter word BEAD, because after many delays, BEAD deployments are just really, the money's starting to get out there, and companies are going to start building those BEAD projects. What are some of the challenges you guys see? Assuming you're probably going to be involved in some of those projects as you move into the next few years. What are some of the challenges from a outside plant companies view with BEAD deployments?
Really, what worries me mostly is pricing. What the owners, the awardees, bid it at, and what their inclusion is. Whether they're 75-25 or 50-50. They when they're bidding these BEAD contracts, I mean, they're doing some sort of engineering. Maybe it's high level. I doubt it's low level.
Right.
But things change a lot from what the expectations, what they bid it at, to what it can actually get done for. And I'm nervous that it's going to drive rates back down to where they were pre-COVID, and we're going to have a really hard time with labor. I'm not saying that's everywhere, but that's choosing the right project and choosing the right customer that's got it for the right price. Because let's be honest, I mean, the cost of labor has gone up, cost of machinery, billing, everything has increased exponentially, some 30% with pre-COVID. And the challenge is, if we take a project on, that we have poor rates on, it's going to be a revolving door of crews that come in and out, and eventually it's going to sour the relationship with our customer. We're going to lose the contract. That's our concern. It's pricing.
Well, I could see that. And one of the things I've heard, and this is not directly BEAD related, but it's all happening at the same time, is how the growth of big data and AI data centers is sucking up a lot of the labor pool too, because these big companies that are building those are paying bigger wages than, say, local technicians could make at a rural electric cooperative, or even at a company like yours or one of your subcontractors. So, I mean, there's some pinching going on from various different angles in the industry right now.
Yep.
There definitely is that. And what happened with the last federal funding was some of the smaller companies, even the larger companies that we worked with, they don't know how to spend the money.
Yeah.
They throw a big pile of money and they're not quite sure on how to deploy it. So again, CBAN, what you offer and what you can offer and what we offer at Open Country is consulting services on how to best utilize that money, and why you can't undercut the local rates. You undercut the local rates, you're really diminishing that product. And at the end of the day, you can put it in the best product, but if it's done poorly, it's really a moot point because the customers are going to be so turned off, and the timing will run out because you're to Brett's point, the revolving door of employees. There was a lot of poaching of employees in the past, again with the past federal funding. But another thing that we can brag about at Open Country, we just went through one of our markets in Iowa, one of our larger in-house markets, and we had a 3% churn year over year, which is unheard of in this industry. You know, in the subcontracting world in the past, year over year, you're looking at hundreds, 200, 300% turnover. So what that tells us is not only are we treating our clients right, we're treating our employees right. So do they get approached? They do, but can those other companies provide the work-life balance that we can offer at Open Country? We overstaff to offset that. So we pay a little bit more, but we allow that flexibility with our employees. So hoping that poaching doesn't happen. Will it? A lot of money does speak, but I think the number one concern, again, to Brett's point, is the diminishing of the labor, but more importantly, do they even know how to spend their $46 million they just received?
Well, we'll see the engineering too. Like they're a lot of them do very little, if at all, any value engineering on the backside. So they'll do their engineering, whether they do it in-house or third party. You know, it's mostly desktop design, and a lot of times that is in QC. You know, to look for inefficiencies. The same thing in the field blocklet. So we see a lot of value engineering opportunities where we can save in a cost per foot, cost per passing, by not removing redundancies and other stuff. Just simple little changes that can be done that'll reduce the overall cost.
Well, I want to, thank you to your team at Open Country. You guys have been great CBAN members, CBAN supporters, sponsor of our spring summit here a few weeks ago, and so I want to thank you very much for your support of CBAN and being part of our team. And we hope you'll continue doing so for a long time to come.
Absolutely, thank you, Curtis. Appreciate your time. Thank you, Curtis.
My pleasure. And before we go today, I just want to let everybody know we appreciate you watching and listening in, depending on whether you're on a podcast, audio, or audio and video. We would appreciate it, especially if you like this episode and subscribe to our Member Spotlight podcast series. We'd love to get the word out and help good people like the folks at Open Country get the word out about what they do. So again, our guests today have been from Open Country, and it's been my pleasure to have Todd Gatzke and Brett Niles on. Again, gentlemen, thank you. Happy travels, and we'll see you when we see you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Curtis.
All right, great. And thank you all for tuning in, listening, or watching to this episode of Member Spotlight.